Hey, so what is God? Um, well, whenever you say the word God, you're referring to something, that a lot of people refer to by a lot of different words, depending on what culture or religion you are a part of, will determine what word you use. The word God, that's a pretty Western word. Majority of the people alive now don't really use that word. Most of the people live in the East, and there's so many different kinds of words. So, you know, when asked the question, "Do you believe in God?" it's important to really know what it is the person's asking you. Like, what idea do they have of God? Because that really determines whether or not you should say yes or no, right? And so if their idea of a God, when they're asking you, do you believe in God, is, more the Western idea of the big man up in the clouds with a long beard and he's in the kingdom of heaven, um, that may not be applicable to the kind of way you'd like to answer that question. So, what is God? Well, the word God points at certain characteristics. And these characteristics are not characteristics that you have to believe in because we experience them. And that's sort of the crux of the issue here is what does God mean? So, so in general, we could say God, you could describe God as intelligence, infinity, unconditional love, perhaps. I think those three come to mind, being particularly attributable to God. Whenever people think of whatever God is, they think, well, God's got to be infinite, right? Because I'm finite, I'm a human. God is the creator, so God's infinite. God is intelligence, right? God is the omniscience, perfect intelligence, complete intelligence, all knowing, all creating. And God is loving. God loves us, and God created morality and justice. And um, and so we experience all three of these things, right? We experience love, we experience intelligence, we experience infinity, right? My perception might be finite, but the universe is infinite. Math is infinite. I experience love. I don't think I need to expand too much on that one. Perhaps not unconditional love, right? Maybe a human, by definition, can't experience unconditional love because the way we do love is transactional. We love things based on conditions, but we kind of conceptually understand what unconditional love means, right? It means loving regardless of any condition. Regardless of what you do, you'll be loved. And the closest thing we can get to that is probably how we think about a parent loving their child or their baby, or how your pet loves you unconditionally, assuming you treat them well. um, and intelligence, well, we have math. We understand that the universe is logical. In fact, it's perfectly logical. um, Everything about it is perfectly logical and explainable and understandable through perfect logic. And that perfect logic, in its most fundamental form, is mathematics. And so when you ask the question, do you believe in God? Well, I say I don't need to believe in God because whatever characteristic you may attribute to God is what I experience. Reality is infinite. Reality is love. Reality is intelligent. So, no, I don't believe in God. I experience God. And if you say the word God, you know, generally there's going to be a connotation or a bias, culturally, um, perhaps subconsciously, towards this idea of a big man in the sky in the kingdom of heaven. And so, do I believe in that? No. No, I don't believe in that because I don't need to believe in things. I experience things. What's the point in believing? Why would you believe in something? Just experience. See what is real. Observe your direct experience. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the main point I was getting to is, God, no matter what word you use for God, you're pointing at some sort of um, feeling, some experienced feeling, some characteristic about our reality that we've described, right? And we don't want to overly humanize God. That's kind of what the big man in the sky is a result of, right? We humanized God. We labeled God. We restricted God. Pretty much any way you can describe God is going to be a limitation. This was the other point I wanted to get to. Any way you can describe God is going to be a limitation, and therefore inaccurate, generally, because God cannot be limited. God is everything. But you see, if you say God's everything, you have to also say that God is nothing, because then you're balancing the situation here. If you say God is everything, well, then what's nothing? Is nothing not God? No, because God invented nothing too. So God is nothing and everything. And this sort of brings us back to the um, the whole fundamental aspect of duality. What is duality or non-duality? And you may be thinking, well, I thought you just said that God was intelligence, God is love, God is infinity. Yeah, God is all of those things. Does that mean you're saying that God is what about the opposite, right? Fear, affinity, and ignorance? Are you saying God is not those things? No, it's not what I'm saying. God is those things, right? And this is the real difficult part to get used to really accept and be comfortable with. That intelligence and ignorance, yes, they're opposite, but they're the same. They're actually the same thing. All right? Love and fear, they are the opposite of each other, yet they are the same thing. Finity and infinity are opposite, yet they are the same thing. And how can this be? Because of the nature of our experience, you cannot have intelligence without ignorance or randomness, unpredictability. You cannot have love without fear. You cannot have infinity without infinity. Because the nature of perception is that perception operates through contrast, through polarities. Once you see that this is the way it works, all you will be able to see is polarities. And the truth is that the polarities, they both show you what the truth is, but they are pointers at the truth, because the real truth is beyond the two sides of polarity. So God had to create ignorance for us to know intelligence, right? If we didn't have the experience of ignorance, how could we know what intelligence was? If we didn't have the experience of darkness, how could we ever perceive light? You couldn't. If there was no darkness, then there would be no experience, because perception would be consisting of um, all white light equivalently permeating all spaces. And so darkness must exist for light. And so am I saying they're literally, physically, in our experience the same thing? Is love and fear literally, physically, in our subjective experience the same thing? No, right? They're opposites. I agree. However, they are codependent. One, in order for one to exist, the other must exist. We simply cannot have an experience without this nature of polarity, of contrast that is central. It is fundamental, this nature of contrast. And so, that's why, I it always comes back to this, because this is the fundamental understanding that needs to be reiterated again and again, and really just repeated and downloaded into our subconscious minds, so that we can have it fully integrated into our state of being, right? This is the nature of the journey, is to not get caught on one side of a polarity, one side of the contrast, one side of duality. Because once we get caught on one side, believing I am the doer of actions, God, I am equivalently doing actions to God, right? Then we feel all this responsibility that for all of our actions, and then we can't forgive ourselves. But then, if we take to the other side, we say, oh, okay, I understand God is the all-doer, I am the non-doer. Then we can forgive ourselves, right? But the problem will come in a different form, sure, but the problem will come no matter which side you stick to. If you just, say, oh, well, I'm not the doer of anything, well, so I don't have any control over what I'm doing, so I'm not going to, try to do anything well. Then you're just screwing yourself in a whole different way. And so, yeah, the simple question, right? Do you believe in God? Well, no. It's not a simple question, because what do you mean by God? Any way you try to describe God will be a limitation. You don't want to humanize God too much. You don't want to characterize God too much. So that's why my explanation is that, God, generally what we're pointing to when we think of God, we're thinking of certain qualities or aspects of our experience on the positive side of the polarity. Love, infinity, and intelligence, right? Those qualities, we don't need, believe in God, because we have the evidence. All the things that we ascribe to God are evidence in our experience. And so God is that force. God is that positive force. And so, the ultimate truth, right, is beyond description. However, to put your mind at ease, I'll just end by saying that yes, the ultimate truth is love, infinity, and intelligence are what is real, and then the opposing, polarity to those things of, ignorance, fear, and infinity, those things are illusions cast by what is real. What is real, God, cast the illusion of man in order to have an experience of coming to know itself, experiencing itself. All right, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Leave any thoughts, questions, comments, ideas down below. I appreciate you. Like, subscribe. Peace.